sorrow, and yet because of the nature of who this crucified one is, and like you said, like everybody's got Christ in them somewhere. That like we can't change that. That there's something divine, like a magnet or something. Something, the grace is there. Like God's fingerprints are already on your being, drawing. God yearns to be with God's self, and so we're being drawn that way. So I think I just agreed with you in an elaborate and unnecessary way.
Right, you use more words.
Yeah,
That's always very important. I just want to mention one thing, and that is the use of the words judgment and mercy together. And we use them and we see them as
Justice, not judgment. Sorry, he said justice, not judgment.
okay, I'm using judgment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I would say the thing.
We say those words on the horizontal, like they're equal. It seems to me humans revel in judgment and are so reluctant to receive mercy. Do you have anything to say about that? Does that mean anything?
Well, I would say even what you just said is a kind of judgment. You see what I'm saying? Like that's a type of.
I call it an obligation.
That's fair. That's fair. You.
It just
So-
seems to be the root of so much that's wrong.
Yeah, but I think like it or not, judgment's a part of our story. It just is. We would not be able to say things. We would not be able to reduce an ethical discussion to Voldemort or Hitler if judgment were not somehow true, possible, whatever. What I guess how I would respond is in a way that's similar to the coffee cup thing. Like we silo off virtues or whatever, and that's a troubling. We want to break everything into its parts, and God makes whole creatures, whole beings, and God does not exist as a creature amongst creatures. God is outside of that. You know what I mean? I don't have a good answer. Somehow it works.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying, could you speak to the fact that humanity rebels so in judgment?
Well,
It is so reluctant to accept mercy, receive mercy. Or is that just not true?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, but I don't, yeah, you're right. Like, what?
What is it about people that causes us to revel in judgment, particularly when it's the other guy,
Yeah, I think,
and are so reluctant to accept and receive mercy for ourselves? It seems so counter.
yeah, I think that's, sin, that's the fallenness, that's the ease, and I think coming out of fear, that deflects, that the judgment deflects off of us, right? It focuses on the other person, and that's, I think that's, I don't know. I think that's just that's like the inner beast. That's the survival of the fittest kind of nature that emerges from us in so many situations, and we point and put it on them or attack them, and then maybe we'll get by.
But we're reluctant to accept and receive mercy.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was all everything.
Yeah. I think maybe, again, I think you're right, but I think just maybe that kind of again comes out of really, it might work into kind of Daniel's line of thinking here, in that would force us to accept mercy, would be then to sort of pull us out and begin to force us to look at the cross and to kind of see what you were saying is sort of steer ourselves potentially there, or acknowledge the other potentially there, and then that would mean that we wouldn't continue to be safe over here, pointing judgment and misdirecting everyone's attention in other kind of places. So I think maybe a kind of continual cycle that feed off of each other.
Can I say something?
Please.
I love you, Roger.
I love you too, Karen.
I see a huge distinction between the words judgment and justice. To me, justice is an attribute of God, and it's perfect, and it's infallible. Justice is justice. Judgment is passing judgment.
Right.
Judgment is me looking at your outsides and judging your insides by your outsides. Judgment is.
What I'm saying, I mean, did I misunderstand, or
No.
we're talking about it on a human sort of level,
I'm
right?
arguing with Roger, but looking at you.
Yeah.
Because I love Roger.
Right.
Let's take a couple of more. Zach, if you have the mic.
Okay,
And then over here.
You got the mic, go ahead.
okay, I guess this is more for Chetta, since you're going with the substitutionary.
Okay.
Before I ask my question, do you, one, believe in free will, and do you think God does bad things to bad people?
Me personally, or me, the persona of substitution?
I guess
Just kidding.
whichever.
Say that one more time.
Okay, do you believe in free will, and do you believe that God causes bad things to happen to bad people?
I do believe in free will, and I don't, and I lean towards God doesn't cause bad things to happen, but I'm just going to put a period there, because I think that's that. But I'm also not, totally. I wouldn't. Yeah. Anyway, I say everything with humbleness.
Okay, the reason I ask is because the substitutionary, to me, seems to hang on the premise that God being crucified was necessary for our salvation. So what that means is that in order for us to have salvation, let's see, you had to have sanctification, torture, and murder. Like, we had to have torture, we had to have murder, we had to have a corrupt government in order to do this, in order for us to have salvation. Like, God caused these bad things in order for us to have salvation. One. Two, it sort of takes away the choice of, like, free will. So, like, this was, like, destined to happen. God caused this to happen in order for us to, like, be closer to God in salvation, like getting rid of sin, rather than, like, we made that choice to happen. We couldn't have made a choice to, not torture and kill God. Does that make sense?
Think. Any fault, of course, only being mine. I don't know that I think substitutionary atonement hinges on the necessity of those things. But even if we were to say that atonement, that the crucifixion was necessary for atonement, that those things were. I'll see if I can say this in a way that makes more sense outside of my head. I think those things were already there. So even if the crucifixion was necessary, and I'm not necessarily saying it was or wasn't right here, but even if it wasn't all of those things, because of the fallenness of the world and because of confronting who Jesus was as God made flesh, with fallenness, brokenness, sin would lead to a confrontation between those things. And if God wasn't going to act with force, then that could only end in one direction. While if God as Jesus was continuing to still speak the truth. Does that make it all any sense? So I think the fallen state of the world confronting God as human being leads to confrontation, because people hearing what God, the human being, has to say, and how Jesus is, will either have to see themselves for who they are, or misdirect and judge and or not receive mercy, which leads to confronting Jesus, and Jesus can either call down heavenly angels to take care of that situation, or allow himself to be crucified. Is that no? So.
It was like, so like, in other words, like, maybe it's not God's wrath that falls on Jesus, it's the world's wrath, right? Like, that's the curse he steps in front of. Like that's the Lily Potter move he makes.
And that would be my distinction between penal substitutionary atonement, where it is God's wrath coming down, and a substitutionary atonement where Jesus is still subbing in, tagging in. But it's not necessarily about shielding us from God's wrath, but of still plugging that gap between God and humankind.
So was God not powerful enough to do it without a sacrifice?
Yeah, well,
we made that choice.
But again, so you're saying that God's power is qualitatively the same as our power, and not qualitatively different from. So God is always utterly free to be God's self, even in the face of the murder of an innocent carpenter from Galilee. God is so powerful and so free to be God's self that he can receive that as an atoning sacrifice. To say, of course God is powerful enough to come down, but like that's just like saying that God has a bigger gun than we do. Like that, it's not a scale of being with God at the top. God transcends that, right? I may not be addressing that either.
Take one more question.
Yeah, let's get.
Hey, I've enjoyed y'all's talk tonight. Y'all's kind of friendly banter. And I have an issue that I wrestle with Christianity. And I don't identify particularly with any one religion. But the whole notion of we're born sinners, I have the hardest time rectifying that, because it seems to me like a newborn baby is the purest thing on earth. And I've never been able to somehow get past that. And explain it to me, or give me some thoughts like I'm a 2-year-old, because it's real cerebral, and I can't really pull it down to what I can understand.
Yeah.
And I don't have any kind of malice or issues with Christianity. But that seems to me like it's the root of belief. And I mean, do you just sort of turn that over to faith and just sort of, you either believe it or you don't? But that's the hardest thing for me to kind of rectify. And I'd love to hear if y'all have anything to say about it.
No, let's actually both come on this. Okay. Yeah. No. I'm with you. I'm right there with you. I don't, in my understanding of, and I'll show my cards. A penal substitutionary atonement, total depravity doesn't do it for me. I don't think babies that die before baptism go to hell or limbo or anything like that. I think a baby is an innocent on one hand. I think so. I don't think babies sin. I think sin involves, at least to some degree, capacity, awareness of what you're doing. But I do think babies, because they're human, take part in sort of the larger, whatever we want to call. To me, they kind of swim as synonyms, but whether larger human fallibility, or I would say sinfulness, but I wouldn't mean that as in a baby does a sinful act, but just in the terms of that we're broken, that we're fallen, and so babies have the capacity to live solely into that sort of evolutionary drive of I gotta survive, I'm the one that's gotta procreate. It's about me. My life is about me, and I'm going to take care of my needs. And so babies do live that, right? Like, what does a baby? A baby exists to consume and be taken care of and survive. Be cared enough for until they can take care of themselves. And if we were just, and then in terms of if they were just a baby animal, then it becomes an animal whose job it is and whose primary drive is to survive and pass my DNA on and so forth. So it's kind of, for me, there's more nuance. I don't think a baby is a sinner, but I do think a baby as a human being is saddled with whatever this mantle of fallen human nature that we all kind of hold.
But when do you become broken?
Yeah.
Oh man, I broke a long time ago.
I get it, but I mean, is it at age 13? Or is
What?
it, because you commit some sin? I mean,
I don't know, man. I think so. Like, we, so I believe that we connect to each other more than just through like the five senses. Like I see you, I can touch you, you got great hair, I could run my hands right through that, like there's something more than that, right? And I think whatever that is, I think babies have that too, even though that they don't like connect their motor skills and all that stuff. And I think because, like every baby is raised by imperfect people, that from the beginning, there's even if it's not significant, even if there's a little something that's like, at some point the temper gets in there and it can, I don't know. I think I would say that's the other thing is I would say I don't know if this is like, so like I used to work with like 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and like the impulse to like snatch the toy back and like swing it at somebody, that's quantitatively different from aggravated assault, but I think that impulse is the same impulse, so I mean it's there really early. It's just
Cool. Can I just chime in on that too? I think part of our brokenness is how we deal with being wounded and being hurt. And I think it'll happen at different times and different levels, but I think the wounding starts early for human beings. And even if it's totally benign on the part of the parent saying no, or taking it's time to put this toy away, or no, you can't touch that hot stove. I think that might be, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a sin against the child or a wound, but the child might receive that as a wound. My will is being thwarted by this stronger being, and so maybe it doesn't initially become this, but I need to get stronger and bigger, so my will isn't thwarted anymore. And I think that might be part of it. And eventually, hopefully, I see part of religion is helping us DIY. I see the beauty and brilliance of kind of what I understand is kind of the Christian receiving of others' will, or we could talk about nonviolence and things like that. But is how to deal with that, how to deal with being wounded, and actually Christians understand that the wounds, of the cross, some of the greatest wounds of all, even out of that can come kind of new life and resurrected life. And so I don't know if I'm starting to ramble, but
that's okay. My one last question about that is that, again, how do you specifically rectify the fact that, and I realize that and I'm so glad that there are more progressive leaders in church these days, and that the beliefs have sort of evolved. I mean, we don't believe that menstruating women should stay outside the city gates anymore. But is that not the root of Christianity that makes Christianity hold itself together? I mean, to me, that seems like
what is the root?
Born a sinner.
Okay.
And I realize you just explained that you don't necessarily believe that, but if you don't believe that, how is there any credence to being a Christian? It seems like those two things sort of fuse together, and if one is not there, it's hard to. Does that make sense? Sort of, not really.
I don't. I'm gonna respond, and you tell me if I understood you.
Okay.
So, like, I think the most real thing about Christianity is not that we are sinners. It's that God is real, God is love, and there's nothing we can do. Romans 8, neither height nor depth nor angels nor powers or whoever's elected can separate you from the love of God that you have in Jesus Christ. I think the doctrine of original sin is the Christian tradition's best way of talking about how no matter what we seem to do, the world is still effed up. And even the soundest explication of that is just not going to say all that can be said. And I think one of the ways that Christians continue to talk about things like original sin is because the fundamental belief is that God is real, God is love, God wants us to be happy, and like a thick understanding of happiness. And the only following from that is that somehow we must be sinful in some way. If that's the desire for us at the core of created existence, that for whatever reason we keep shutting it down a little bit, or putting a stumbling block there or whatever. So, yeah, thank you, man. Good question.
One last question.
My question is, if you dismiss penal substitution, you also have to dismiss Levitical sacrifice as a type for the crucifixion.
Will you say that one more time?
If you dismiss penal substitution, you always also have to dismiss Levitical sacrifice as a type for crucifixion.
I'm not positive that Levitical sacrifice is penal. Like, the goat doesn't somehow deserve to go up to Azazel. You know what I mean? So I think that's where that breaks down. I think it's worth entertaining the substitution without the penal part. I think that may be a legit question worth entertaining, one that I'm not sure that I have a good answer to. I would think my response would be, if God is still God, and Jesus, like especially in Luke's gospel, Jesus is a faithful Jewish dude from a faithful Jewish family. And if God is unchangeable, and only creation is changeable, then the same thing that God is trying to help us understand or whatever with the whole Levitical code and all of that has got to be at core the same thing that God is doing, trying to do, however you want to call it, in Jesus. That's what I would say.
That sounds good to me. But also, right, I mean, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, so you might need to explain a little bit more, but like, right, we don't buy into Levitical sacrifice anymore, like that. See, am I misunderstanding that? Like that Jesus sort of, in Christian understanding, Jesus sort of fulfilled any of the sacrificial necessities of kind of religion. So if, I guess, even if I was hardcore penal substitutionary atonement, I would see that as replacing any of the kind of Levitical circumstances around it. And if I didn't like penal substitutionary atonement, then well, I guess that still wouldn't, for me, at least as far as I'm understanding, then it still wouldn't really matter to me, because whatever Jesus did, however we want to talk about that kind of for Christians at least, threw off any necessity for that sort of relationship with God. Did I totally miss what you were trying to ask?
I was just thinking, as the church sees, well, at least most of the church that I grew up in, sees the Levitical sacrifice as a direct type connected to the crucifixion. Like the prelude to the crucifixion, but just not good.
Gotcha.
Like, not enough. It was just a temporary, like,
Yeah.
in penal sacrifice, I mean, penal substitution, that's how I grew up.
Yeah, right.
We were taught that was a type of the crucifixion, but it wasn't enough to get us there.
Uh-huh.
Christ had to come to do it.
Yeah.
The rest
This is just a hunch. I have to think about it, and now I will think about it. I think I have a hunch that we could get there, that we could maintain Levitical sacrifice as a type, as a precursor of, as a hint of what we were eventually hoping for in Jesus, without penal substitutionary atonement still being kind of our main framework for that. I think we could get there, but I'd have to think about it and make some.
Well, let's give these two guys a hand. Now, it's obvious we are not going to come to a final decision about the meaning of the atonement or about the cross this evening, but there has to be a winner, and there can only be one winner this evening. And we try to decide upon the most irrelevant way of determining said winner. In this case, we are going to play Russian egg roulette, which is exactly what it sounds like.
You're in the splash. Yeah.
It's kind of like when they had to choose a disciple after Judas. God will tell us who
This is
won.
exactly what we did.
It's casting lots. Also, something about egg on our faces. I don't know.
So watch the rug.
Here we go.
I guess. Is that?
You want to do it to each other or on each other?
On each other.
Do we take turns? Or we go?
So.
Okay. Hard boiled. That felt kind of cold.
It's a little bit juicy. It's so hard.
Thanks to you guys all for coming this evening. We have yet to decide if there will be a small thoughts debate in February, but there will definitely be one on Thursday, March the 4th, 3rd or 4th? First Thursday of March. It will be 2 church musicians. Fred Teardo, the organist of the Advent Cathedral, and Sean Pazant, who is the contemporary musician at St. Luke's Church in Mountain Brook. So it would be a good one. Come back.
When will you guys do that?
There were times, let's go to the pub.
Yeah. But you can buy us a beer anytime you want.
We've argued about way less important stuff.
Yeah, I can hear y'all talk more, and I guess I kind of feel like I want to hear more personal take. And like, I mean, Jonathan, like, any last parting for real, like your personal opinion.
Oh yeah, I think I meant to actually do that too.
Right. Slash like the atonement thing too, about people who are like, why atonement? And I.
Oh yeah, we were gonna do that. The egg is taking all my thoughts. I think the beautiful thing about atonement is that it doesn't just have to be one. That there are all these different ways, so many ways of understanding what Jesus did, and all of them. Kind of like I mean, Daniel actually said I probably should have just, it wouldn't have made for a very good debate. But when Daniel actually sent me his opening notes of what he was saying, I was sort of already persuaded and on board. Just that, yeah, there are layers, and we can trying to understand. It's like looking at a painting or reading a poem. All of these perspectives help us get a hinge on something, get a glimpse, a barest glimpse of something that at the end of the day will be a mystery until kingdom come. But all of these help us live into our gratitude, which I think is another critical Christian virtue of understanding what Jesus did, what God does, God's love for us, and all of the different versions of atonement can communicate that in different ways. I hope. Yeah, that would be my.
Yeah, I love that. We have a belt.
Oh, there's a ceremony. We love ceremony.
You have to pose for the picture with the.
Is it made of cardboard?
Has your name on it.
Cardboard and bottle sacks and duct tape.
It's like all of my favorite things.
Ultimate crafting. Thanks.
This is great.